Hey, it's Zane here. Hope you're doing well. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining me again today. And in today's video, I want to talk about $1 million Bitcoin and whether or not this is in play. And I want to talk about a 5-year time horizon and why I believe that Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million US by 2030. But the purpose of this video isn't so much to be focused on that number. It's more to kind of get you to understand that Bitcoin is a long-term play. It's a long-term investment, but it's also a transformational monetary technology that I believe is eventually going to totally reshape the financial system. And so I think when we talk about Bitcoin, it's really important that we sort of stand back and we have a large macro kind of view as to what's going on in the world, how we're moving into this digital age, this digital transformation of value and wealth, how everything is going to be tokenized, and the part that Bitcoin's going to play in all of this, and how you and I can actually participate in this new true global free market that is what really Bitcoin truly represents. So let's talk about $1 million Bitcoin. And, it used to be that being a millionaire was a big deal because, once upon a time, having $1 million without any debt, essentially at 5%, which was always recognized as a reasonable rate of return. Essentially, if you had a million bucks unencumbered, stored in an income-generating asset, it would enable you to generate $50,000 a year, which for most people would have been enough to retire, particularly if you're debt-free and you don't have a mortgage and you don't have rents. But of course, all of this has changed. We know that $1 million these days. It really doesn't buy you that much when it comes to housing, for example. And so, being a millionaire or being a Bitcoin millionaire or any type of millionaire these days is not that big of a deal. And so, even though $1 million Bitcoin could and will be achieved, and I believe within the next 5 years, we have to keep remembering that it's the compound growth rate of Bitcoin, the adoption of Bitcoin, that is where it really starts to come into its own beyond that period. And so when I talk to people, I always like to kind of have a 10 to 15 year time horizon. Most people can get their head around that kind of a time horizon. Many of the people I talk to, particularly during my one-on-one coaching sessions, they're in their mid to late 40s or beyond. And so a 10 to 15 year time horizon for kind of wanting to, hang up their boots and enjoy life a little, not have to work necessarily unless they want to, go on some adventures, maybe travel a little, not have to worry about income. A 10 to 15 year time horizon from where most people are now, is a good sort of yardstick or a good goal to have. And so I think that $1 million Bitcoin in 2030 is in play. I'm not the only one who's saying this. The likes of Kathy Wood from ARK Invest, she's actually got Bitcoin past $1 million by 2030. And you've only got to look at the past 7 years compound annual growth rate, CAGR, which is sitting at around about 59%. And if you are to extrapolate a 59% compound annual growth rate over the next 5 years, what you get is a 10x on your money. And so, in round figures, if you said that Bitcoin was sitting at $100,000 today, we know that it's less than that. It's hovering around kind of 80, just under 80,000 US dollars, about 120, 130 Aussie. But just think of it in terms of 10xing your money. So if Bitcoin was sitting at 100,000 today, it would be $1 million within the next 5 years at a 59% compound annual growth rate. Got it. That's an important thing to keep in mind. And I guess a lot of people who are getting into Bitcoin now, unless they've got significant capital at their disposal, they're not necessarily acquiring one whole Bitcoin. And so the prospect of them being a Bitcoin millionaire within the next 5 years, unless they're able to buy one whole Bitcoin today, is probably not great. However, this is where the conversation gets really interesting, and I was pointing this out on my webinar the other night, where I shared a couple of really great tools, but one of the tools was a DCA Bitcoin profit calculator. And you can look this up. I've actually got a copy of it here. It's called Coin Codex. It kind of looks like this. If you can see there, Coin Codex. It's a Bitcoin investment calculator. But this is a really great tool, and you can go to the website, coincodex.com/profit-calculator/Bitcoin, and you can use this tool yourself to see what it would mean if you started DCAing into Bitcoin now. Now, this little example that I just printed out this morning shows that if you started today with a $5,000 investment, if you put $5,000 into Satoshis now, into Bitcoin, and then you contributed $500 per month, just $500 per month for the next 15 years, what you'd find is that at a compound growth rate, and I've just skimmed it back from the 59 to, I've just gone a neat 50%. So if we were working on a 50% compound annual growth rate over the next 15 years, you start with $5,000 and then you contribute $500 per month for the next 15 years. You don't think about it. You just put that $500 DCA into Bitcoin as a forced form of savings. In 15 years, you'd end up with $10 million, just over. And the total amount that you would have invested in fiat currency to achieve that would be $90,000. And of course, this is the power of compound growth. And, we know Albert Einstein, he called it the eighth wonder of the world. People who understand the value of investing over long periods of time, just steady as she goes, just staying in the game. People know that it's one of the secrets to getting rich. And so, I just really want to highlight the point that if you've got a 10 to 15 year time horizon and you can create a strategy for yourself, a dollar cost averaging savings strategy, and you can stay disciplined and on track with that and not be caught up in the day-to-day noise and all of the disruptive narratives that come our way, and you can just keep your eye on the prize and stay with it, then for me that is the path to being absolutely financial free within the next 10 to 15 years. Now, you might say, well, what happens if Bitcoin doesn't do 50% compound annual growth rate? And that's a fair point. We don't know that it's going to continue doing 50 to 59%. But if you start looking at the adoption curve of Bitcoin and the fact that less than 5% of the population worldwide has any exposure to Bitcoin, and you consider Metcalfe's law, how the value of a network, which is what Bitcoin is, it's not just a network, it's actually a protocol, but a network-driven protocol, a new financial system, a system that's imposing a new set of rules on the current financial system. So it's a protocol, it's like the internet. It's a new base layer of the monetary system. And if we're buying into a new base layer of the monetary system that is going to be the future, and you understand that less than 5% have any exposure to it of the world, and you understand that nation states, governments, the US government in particular, institutions, the biggest financial managers on earth are all starting to acquire Bitcoin, and this is just the beginning, you can draw your own conclusions as to what the growth trajectory of Bitcoin is going to be moving forward. And so, I'm actually more bullish than 50%. I actually think that Bitcoin is going to really surprise everyone, because we have to keep getting back to the fact that it is an absolutely fixed and finite, scarce asset. You can't print any more Bitcoin. We already have something like 95% of all of the Bitcoin that will ever exist, of the 21 million, that has already been mined. And so I think the next 4% is going to happen within the next 8 years, and then the final 1% is about another 100 years from where we are now. And so the bulk of the Bitcoin has already been mined. There is no ability to create any more Bitcoin. And so when you continue to process that thought, and you realize that we're at the very beginning of mass adoption, and you realize that governments and institutions, and I believe very soon insurance companies, everybody is going to want a piece of Bitcoin, of something that is absolutely scarce. You and I still have an opportunity to front run all of this big end of town, all of these institutions and governments, nations, states, corporations that have very, very deep pockets. And as they start to pile into Bitcoin, they're going to want to try and acquire your Bitcoin. People who are holding Bitcoin, about 75% of the Bitcoin that is held on chain, on the base layer, is owned by individuals. And so when you have people who don't care what price they have to pay, when they are price agnostic, and they'll pay any price to acquire the base layer of the new monetary protocol, they'll pay any price. This is where it's going to become a real mental challenge for most people, because most people, when they're presented with the opportunity to sell their Bitcoin for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million, most people will actually, well, a lot of people, not most, but a lot of people will choose to part with their Bitcoin and sail off into the sunset. And, there's a whole other conversation around that, because what we're seeing very quickly happening is this evolution of the financialization of Bitcoin, where if we consider Bitcoin as granite, the base layer of the new monetary system, there are all of these layers that are going to be built on top now that financial institutions are getting involved. And you have people like CJ Konstantinos, who is the head of the People's Reserve, companies like Ledin, who are now giving Bitcoiners the opportunity to post their Bitcoin as collateral. Remember that Bitcoin is absolute pristine collateral, and in return for that, you can borrow against your Bitcoin to fund your lifestyle, to buy other assets, maybe start a business, whatever it might be. Of course, you need to be able to pay the interest, which means you need the income, need to have the income to be able to pay the interest on those loans. But at least you get to hold on to your Bitcoin. And so this is a quickly evolving space, and as we acquire more Bitcoin, as the value of Bitcoin starts to compound year after year, if you can stay disciplined, if you can stay on track, if you can keep your eye on the price, and you can just stick with it and quieten the noise, block out all of the distractions, you will get there, and you will have an abundant future. You will have a very, very prosperous retirement. If retirement's not of interest to you, if that's a long way off, you'll be financially free, and you'll have the option, you'll have optionality, because you're a Bitcoin holder. You are a holder. You have a stake in the new base layer of the new financial system. You're going to be in a very elite group, and you're going to have optionality. You will be able to either sell down some of your stack in order to fund your lifestyle. Of course, depending on what country you're in, you may or may not have tax implications associated with that. You'll be able to post your Bitcoin and borrow against it, and if you have income to support it. Maybe you'll buy a house, but rather than disposing of your Bitcoin and paying capital gains on the sell, you might choose instead to borrow against your Bitcoin, go and buy a unit or apartment or a condo or a house or whatever it might be, and maybe you're able to generate income through rent if you're not needing to live there yourself, and then that will cover the interest that you're paying on your Bitcoin loan, but you get to hold on to the Bitcoin and to the real estate. These are options that you're going to have into the future. I'm not saying anyone is going to be better, but I'm just saying that there will be options. And so don't get too hung up on, oh, I'll never sell my Bitcoin. Will I have to pay tax on it? How am I going to borrow against it? There are all these questions, and mark my words, the answers to them will come to you, and they'll be pretty straightforward when you get down the road to this point. So I want to wrap this video up, but I just want to really, highlight the point that $1 million Bitcoin is coming. It's not just me saying that. There are many different, people in the financial space who study adoption, who study the charts, who understand where we are in the evolution of Bitcoin. And most are of the view that over the next 5 years we're going to 10x with Bitcoin. Some are far more bullish than that. Many believe that we are underestimating Bitcoin's adoption and its rate of growth based on that adoption, based on the billions and trillions of dollars that are coming for Bitcoin, based on the fact that it is a decentralized monetary system which is going to become very, very attractive in an increasingly controlling world. And we know that CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, are coming to Europe. The ripple effect of that could be significant around the world. And so people are going to want to protect their wealth. And Bitcoin is also an opportunity to do that as well. So $1 million Bitcoin, I believe it's coming. It's coming a lot sooner than we think. But I also believe that one of the real secrets to benefiting from Bitcoin, to becoming a Bitcoin millionaire, multi-millionaire in fact, to becoming Bitcoin rich, to being financially free and sovereign, is to zoom out and have a 10 to 15 year time horizon and to just stay with it. And tools like this at coincodex.com are really helpful in helping you to plot your future plans. So, hope you got something from that. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think $1 million Bitcoin is in play by 2030? I'd love to hear what you think about that. What do you think the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin is going to be over the next 5 and 10 years? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Please like the video if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to hear more from me and become a part of my community. And feel free to share this video with anybody who you think may be interested. Other than that, thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. This is Zane signing out. Have a great day. Bye for now.